Welcome to Kingpins 24 Latin America. My name is Rowan Atwood, and it's my pleasure to host our special guest today to talk about carbon, climate, and the actions that these companies are taking to mitigate their footprint in an ever-changing world where climate and its implications for the alteration of life's natural cycles are becoming more commonly discussed. And not only on a global stage, but also locally as droughts worsen, weather events intensify, and the increase in emergent zoonotic diseases like COVID has devastating effects on human populations. The correlation between rising surface temperature and negative effects to our agriculture, natural areas, coastal communities, and society overall is becoming abundantly clear. But let's do something. Let's take these big global concepts for a minute and visualize changing climate in a 30-second geophysics lesson so that we're all level set on how climate change works. The mechanics through the lens of going to the beach. If you've ever been to the beach on a hot summer day, maybe you're with your family, maybe you arrived a little late in the afternoon because it took a while to get everybody organized, but you go to the beach and you feel as you walk across the sand, a tingling sensation. Your feet are burning. It's hot to the touch. And if you can visualize, this is where the analogy kind of departs from reality, but if you can imagine grabbing that sand and throwing it up into the atmosphere where those individual particles, those sand particles become gas, it's the exact same concept. That the surface area of the sand, and in this case, the surface area of gases trapped in our atmosphere, is exactly what's contributing to climate change. That the surface area of the gas interacting with infrared light is what's causing the rise in temperature, just like burning your feet on sand, going to the beach on a hot summer day. Now, average global temperatures have increased by 1.2 degrees Celsius, 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit since 1880, with the greatest changes happening in the last 30 years. Land areas have warmed more than sea surface, but the Arctic has warmed the most, close to double the global average since the 1960s. And when we see the international community meeting to make agreements for global collaboration on climate, we can't help but ask, what is it that we can do? What can we do as individuals, but also what can we do as an industry? This group of panelists represent a small but growing number of denim kingpins that are taking action to be good corporate citizens and mitigate their carbon footprint. I would like to introduce Trisha Carey from Lensing, Tencel, Elizabeth Olvera from Denim Clothing Company, and Jimmy Summers from Cone Denim. Welcome, and let's jump right in.
Hello, my name is Trisha Carey. I handle global business development at Lensing. We produce the Tencel fiber from trees, and we make a full range of fibers, one that includes our carbon zero Tencel lyocell and modal.
Hello, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Oliveira, head design at Denim Clothing Company, Pakistan.
And hello, everybody. I'm Jimmy Summers, and I'm Vice President of Environment, Health, Safety, Sustainability, Chief Sustainability Officer at Elevate Textiles and Cone Denim. And we're a manufacturer of denim and other fabrics and threads around the world. So I'll take that first. So where do they start? I think the first thing that companies have to have is the commitment and the vision. And I think that all responsible companies have that now, but that is crucial, really, that it's all the way from the C-suite on down and the facility management that they understand the issues and they have that commitment. That's where it starts. And then I think from there, facilities and companies have to have a clear understanding of where they stand, where they are, obviously, their own carbon footprint and their own supply chain impact on carbon. And there's various ways, there's lots of information out there on how to get started, on how to measure that. I'm sure most companies are already doing that, but it is, there's many protocols, the greenhouse gas protocol, the Science-Based Targets Initiative has lots of tools and information available to guide companies on how they measure it, because that's the first thing you have to understand is what's your impact and what's your footprint, and And then you can start to analyze, okay, what are the things that we can do? What are the demonstrative things that we can do to reduce our carbon footprint of our industry and of our facilities?
That's great. Tricia, what are your thoughts? Where can companies start?
I think it can be an overwhelming concept around looking at our carbon footprint. And I think overall, you don't have to be a scientist to start looking at this. And no matter what role you play within an organization, you have to take a look at this. And as Jimmy said, you have to start measuring it. You have to look at where you are in order to know how to improve. It's great to look at the collaborations that are happening in the industry, and that's the only way that we're going to be able to achieve a difference. Looking at some of the initiatives like the UNFCCC, the Fashion Charter for Climate Change, which happened in 2019, and over what's happened over the past 2 years is very important. It's interesting that we are actually filming this during COP26. Right. Where there's a lot of information going on right now. And it was announced last week, as Jimmy said, science-based targets is another great place to start. Elevate has approved science-based targets. So does Lensing. We had our approved science-based targets in 2019. And they continue to have different tools to support companies. Last week, they launched the first net zero corporate standard. So again, looking at what's already there, you don't have to rewrite things. And also looking at, what's happening with companies outside of the denim industry. I think Allbirds has done a great job in putting together information and sharing this. It's open source. Here's information on how they're figuring out their carbon footprint and trying to also educate consumers at the same time. So I think, it comes down to measuring, looking at information that's already out there, and developing collaborations in the industry.
That's great. I like how we had, Jimmy provided a very sort of focused, starting with the understanding the vision, tracking and measurement, and getting to, things that we can do and analyzing those intervention strategies. And Tricia, you really rounded out that journey, that opportunity with really just sharing out on, just really kind of connecting the dots to the major things that are going on today right now with the COP meetings, and also the science-based targets initiatives and what we can do in a collaborative space industry-wide, and also drawing on examples from other places is extremely important. How about if we start to think some of those discrete projects or individual things that you guys are doing as, case examples or ideas that people can also utilize? What projects are you working on to address carbon intensity, either in your operations, materials, or supply chain? Elizabeth, would you like to start?
Yeah, for sure. So actually, one thing I would like to resolve is that we are a vertical company. So this helps us to make the proper traceability on our carbon emission. We know exactly how much fuel and we are using, how much carbon we are emitting. So finally, this is, and also we are also spending not too much resources on transports and logistics. So all this, it's much easier for us to understand exactly where we are. On the other hand, on an operational plan, we have one sustainable team with an action plan that makes sure we are accomplishing our goals. We have, for example, the certifications, and we have the green building certification that is more related with the construction. We have also the cradle to cradle and the EEGS that it's more related with the garment, because there are so many areas where we can work on to make a big piece of cake. We have the fabric and we have the garment. So all these certifications helps us and drives us to achieve our goal and to control the numbers and exactly what we are, how many emissions we are making. And we also have internal apart from the certifications, we also have internal plans to work with our teams to give them awareness of which kind of details in their daily daily life or at work they can make to avoid carbon emission. We also have audits, energy audits we do ourselves. And we also have database to know exactly how much energy we are producing. So this is more in a general, in our plan for reducing the carbon emission. And finally, the future, what we have in hand and we are implementing just right now, it's our solar plant that will be ready beginning of next year. And we are also participating with the Pakistani government in planting trees because the Pakistani government have a plan to plant 3 billion trees in the next years, and we are also participating on that. So this is a huge, small step by step. I believe we already have some results.
That's lovely. Vertical integration from solar plants to planting trees. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Jimmy, how about you guys? What are some discrete projects you're working on with Cone Dental?
Yeah. And of course, I come from the perspective of a manufacturing operation and all that goes into that, with that. But and it may not sound very exciting, first of all, but one of the things that we're really focusing on is the basics and things like lighting, steam systems, air usage, and the other motors and the other things that there's certainly, there's good practices and there's better practices and there's best practices in managing those types of equipment and systems. And in order for us to reach the goals and the commitments that we have to know that each of our facilities is doing the best on the basics, because there's a significant amount of energy that can be wasted if that's not being done. So, Elizabeth mentioned the energy audits, and that's the type of thing where you can identify and those issues. And so that's one thing that we're doing, is that we're highlighting. There's lots of information out there. Apparel Impact Institute, lots of government agencies have lots of information on energy efficiency and steam systems and lighting and those types of things. And so we try to take full advantage of that, because that's like just the basics that have to be in place before even as we're starting to think about other step changes that we can make. So that's one thing. Another, so then we look at things like cogeneration. So and we have one facility where we've put in cogeneration, and what that is dyeing and manufacturing facilities typically use a lot of steam and a lot of electricity, and typically they're made separately. They will buy the electricity that's made somewhere else with carbon emissions, and then we'll burn fuel and make steam. Well, cogeneration combines that so that we're using the same, it's much more efficient, and we're using the same energy to create both the electricity and the steam. And so we have installed that at one facility, and we're looking that as we look to upgrade our steam systems, that we do that. And then processes like the G2 Genealogia system that are much more efficient at chemical usage and energy usage. We're installing those, and there's other technology that we're constantly looking at to apply to our processes to make them more efficient. And of course also solar projects. We're watching that very closely. It's more advantageous in certain countries. There's government programs that help with that, but that's something that I see is starting to become doable on a large scale. Now there's it takes a lot of area to have enough solar to provide energy for a full facility, but those are things we're looking at. And then overall, I think an important thing to bring out is data visibility. So the actual performance of our facilities, how much energy are they using, how much electricity are you using, which is directly ties to the carbon emissions. Having that data visible and available for for management, for business leadership to review and to see and to set targets. And because we have some very aggressive targets, and we all have to have very aggressive targets to meet the commitments that we have to meet to limit the climate change. And so we have to have those specific metrics and targets and look at it by facility, and so that's the type of thing that we're doing that helps drive also accountability and change.
Yeah, that's great. That's really important stuff. And I think it's, when you mention the basics and the energy efficiency work, and, while that is, sort of some of the building blocks, it's important to recognize that those early step changes can have a lot of impact, right? Anywhere from 10 to 30% of total energy reduction through efficiency measures alone. And I'm reminded by the work never really ends either. It's not just check the box and you're done, because I think, in the spirit of, good environmental management systems and this idea of plan, check, do, act, it's a continuous improvement cycle that does require us to revisit our thinking on major building systems, mechanical systems, and manufacturing methods as technology improves. That we can't be too idle or content with the way that things were done previously, that we have to be constantly looking at what's new and available in the marketplace. So that's fantastic. Tricia, I know that you guys have done a lot in this space. Would you mind sharing with the group?
Yeah, no, I think there's been a lot going on. And when I look back over, say, 5 years ago, where people were debating, is there an issue? Now we're all clear there is an issue and we need to do something about it. And at Lensing, I would say we've besides, looking at measuring and assessing what the issues are for us, we set some clear goals. We looked at collaborations and we've developed it into our products. So in those three areas, when we set our goals, actually it was June of 2019 that we set a goal to be net zero by 2050. When that first came out, I kept thinking to myself, oh, geez, that's a long way off. But we have to consider, and as you mentioned, Rowan, there's a lot of other factors. There's a lot of other changes that need to happen. It's complex as a producer of raw materials that we need, of shipping. All of that needs to be considered in order to reach net zero by 2050. We then moved on and looked at collaborations, and that was with the UNFCCC, where we were the first and only fiber producer to sign, and that was in 2019. I'm just saying this from a timeline because it's taken us a couple of years to get to the point where we're at today. Then, as I mentioned earlier, we have our approved science-based targets. And again, we were the first fiber company of man-made cellulosic fiber company to reach that point. And this came with a lot of questions also to our brand and retailer partners around what is needed in order to reach those science-based targets. And then we also set some other specific goals of reduction of CO2 emissions 50% by 2030. So once you have the 2050 goal, you need to start to break it down in order to, a lot of the timeline in order to reach that goal. And it comes with an investment too. We don't just make these goals and say, okay, I think they're going to happen. We actually have to put the money, and as what Jimmy said before, it needs to be CEO top-down investment, human resources and financial resources in order to achieve these goals. And then the final part of reaching the product stage was last year in September of 2020 when we launched True Carbon Zero Tensile Lyocell and Modal fibers. So this was the first time that we could actually have our fibers have zero carbon footprint. And for a retailer or brand, or whether you're a fabric producer or a garment maker, how are you ever going to achieve net zero if the products and the raw materials in your garment aren't starting off that way? How we were able to achieve this with our tensile lyocell is through reduction. We all know that that's the way we have to get to net zero. We also engaged with our suppliers on where that reduction could happen. And for any other area that we couldn't reduce, then we do have some offsets. So because we are the only global man-made cellulosic fiber producer that has an integrated site, meaning that the trees come in and the fiber goes out, and that's at our headquarters in Austria, we are able to have a lot of efficiencies. And when Jimmy was talking about some of the energy that's required, we actually use byproducts from the tree in order to burn that for fuel for the plant. So the biomass that is within our headquarters at our production facility. But we're also able to bring this net zero, carbon zero concept to our other production facilities as well. And this year in September of 2021, we launched Carbon Zero Refibra. So we will continue to add more products of our fiber portfolio into our Carbon Zero umbrella. And I think this is really the right direction that we need to have going forward. So it's not just what we're doing as a company, but we can bring it down to a product level. And we have some products already coming out in the market. Jack Jones is one, using our Carbon Zero Tencel lyocell in denim. So we are making some progress, but we all have to be in this together.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and I really appreciate in the earlier part of your comments, you were saying how you have to take that goal. I mean, getting to that product phase is a very mature state, and being able to communicate that to your customers and helping them build sustainable product collections is absolutely fantastic. But the intermediary goal, or having the goal and creating intermediary like waypoints to get to those goals is really important for some of those companies that might be starting on their journey or exploring this for the first time. And you said something that was really important there that I just underlined, which is it doesn't come without investment, right? There needs to be some sort of resourcing against these goals and these targets in order to make that happen. And it's very it's necessary, and it is required in order to get the result, to reach the goal, whether it be intermediary or long-term. Just a quick note to our listeners, we're right about 15-20 minutes into the presentation, so join us for the other half, the longer version, when you do what you need to on the screen, click through or what have you. But please continue with us to hear more on carbon, climate, and all things that we're doing to mitigate them in the industry.